There is a powerful group inside the Catholic Church.
We are God's hands. We are the people to do God's work.
It's called Opus Dei.
This Pope was pointing his finger at this group and saying, this is the way to go.
In the best-selling novel The Da Vinci Code, they're portrayed as villains.
It hurts me to see my family of Opus Dei be treated like some kind of mafia, which is ridiculous.
In real life, they've been called secretive and cult-like.
You give up your life, you give up any money, you give up everything.
It was a fear of hell that allowed me to stay for so long.
Their rituals of self-torture have drawn intense scrutiny.
I don't do it because I like it. I do it because I dislike it.
This has forced Opus Dei to speak out.
We have a message that society wants to hear. We want to get our message across.
Just what is the truth behind Opus Dei? It began in 1928 with a divine inspiration experienced by a devout Spanish priest.
He felt God was calling him to create this new body composed of men at first, later, through another vision, men and women, priests and laity, and that the point would be not to do things in a church, but to get out into the street.
Following what he believed was God's holy call, Father Jose Maria Escrivá formed a new Catholic group. He would later name it Opus Dei, which in Latin means work of God. But even after its controversial founder was made a Catholic saint in 2002, many Americans were unaware of Opus Dei. That is, until the Da Vinci Code was published a year later. The Da Vinci Code is a grand fictional conspiracy where art, Christianity, history, and murder collide. Written by Dan Brown, the novel has sold over 40 million copies worldwide.
It's one of these very entertaining, fantastic, wild sort of page turners that, is fun to read when you're on an airplane for 2.5 hours.
Brown writes that hidden inside the extraordinary art of Italian master Leonardo da Vinci lies a code that reveals a mysterious and powerful secret. The book asserts that Mary Magdalene gave birth to Jesus' child, and that for centuries the Catholic Church has concealed the truth.
Inconceivable, preposterous, the things that he says as facts in the book about history. The sad thing is that many people get confused in this kind of type of faction, this mystery of fact and fiction, and people can't distinguish.
Straddling that fact-fiction divide is the novel's depiction of Opus Dei. The Da Vinci Code connects a dark global conspiracy to the deep sanctums of the group. Its leader is portrayed as a diabolical villain. At the center of this sinister plot is a menacing Opus Dei monk who kills on demand.
Imagine any other religious organization being named in a book like that and said that they do those kinds of things. People would be outraged, and yet, because Opus Dei, I think, is this conservative Catholic group, somehow that's just sort of been ignored.
As a Catholic, it hurts me to see Jesus kind of dragged through the mud in a certain kind of way, as he is in the book. It hurts me to see my family of Opus Dei be treated like it's some kind of mafia, which is ridiculous.
The Da Vinci Code also dramatically introduces the controversial ritual of corporal mortification.
Castigo corpus meum.
Hollywood has focused its own glaring spotlight on Opus Dei in the film version of the Da Vinci Code, starring Tom Hanks and directed by Ron Howard. For millions, the Da Vinci Code has created their only image of Opus Dei, some of it rooted in fact, some in pure fiction, but has a clear public picture yet to emerge. Rome, Italy. In the middle of this magical metropolis is Vatican City, home to the Roman Catholic Church. Beyond the Vatican walls, there are over 1 billion Catholics globally. More than half the world's Christians are Catholics. Within this vast church, you'll find religious orders like the Jesuits, the Dominicans, and lay organizations like the Knights of Columbus and Opus Dei.
Opus Dei is a way to have a relationship with God in your everyday life, not just on Sunday, but every day through every moment and every circumstance.
The spiritual message of Opus Dei is that one can find God in work and daily life, that lay people in their regular secular professions can pursue a saintly life, a holier life, and thereby transform the world around them.
Try and help somebody else.
If you are a faithful, believing, conservative Catholic, sometimes you don't even feel at home in your own parish. You may not feel at home with your own friends. What Opus Dei gives you is an environment in which you feel at home.
Opus Dei has 87,000 members in 61 countries. Its membership is comprised mostly of lay people, doctors, firefighters, farmers, salesmen. Some married, some celibate. 2% are clergy, including priests, bishops, and 2 cardinals. But no nuns and no monks.
I think the most important thing that Opus Dei has done for me is to help me understand the right balance that my life should have, the right balance between work, family, being a husband, golfing, and my faith in God.
These deeply faithful Catholics, sometimes called Orthodox Catholics, follow a rigorous daily routine of Mass, prayer, and spiritual formation.
It's not signing up at, a health club. Being a member of Opus Dei is a divine vocation, so God calls that person. Many people come into contact with Opus Dei, attend their activities, and don't join, because it isn't for everyone.
John Allen is the Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter and author of a recent book on Opus Dei.
There are all kinds of Catholic liberals around the world who have never met an Opus Dei member, never been to an Opus Dei center, never read a book by Escrivá, who nevertheless are profoundly convinced that Opus Dei is something evil.
Over the years, some have charged that Opus Dei is a secret and clandestine cult, that it recruits aggressively, that it has vast sums of money, and that it controls the Vatican.
What I am doing is pointing out something that I believe is like a cancer. They ruin people's lives and tear families apart. That is not a Christian thing to do.
On the one hand, you have thousands of very holy and healthy Catholics living devoted lives of service in the modern world, which is terrific. On the other hand, there are some problems with Opus Dei that really need to be looked at.
So how did this small group and its enigmatic founder become the lightning rod of controversy in the Catholic Church? Vatican City, September 2005. In an exterior niche alongside St. Peter's Basilica, a 5-meter-high marble statue of Opus Dei's founder, Saint Jose Maria Escrivá, is unveiled and blessed by Pope Benedict XVI during a special Vatican ceremony. The prelate of Opus Dei, the institution's worldwide head and only its 3rd leader, is Spanish Bishop Javier Echevarria, a member since 1948, close friend and personal secretary to Escrivá. He behaved on earth as he surely is now behaving in heaven, with the perfection that is truly only given to the souls that enjoy God's vision. The image of his statue, which we contemplate upon today, is an eloquent sign of such a vision. A riveting figure in life, Escrivá and the history of Opus Dei are inseparable. Spain, a European country of some 42 million people, 94% of whom are Catholic. In 1902, Jose Maria Escrivá de Balaguer was born into a devout Catholic family. As a pious teenager, Escrivá entered the seminary, and at the age of 23, Jose Maria was ordained a priest.
He was a person with a tremendous faith able to do anything to accomplish or to follow that faith.
The turning point in Escrivá's life came on October 2nd, 1928. During a retreat in Madrid, he heard the ringing of church bells and experienced a vision. He believed it was a supernatural intervention from God. This vision would become Opus Dei. I love Opus Dei with all my heart, as it is an instrument to serve the Church, to serve souls, to contribute to peace and happiness of all people, the well-being of the world. To do work of the magnitude of Opus Dei, you need strong instruments. To have balance, there needs to be a sense of battle, but also, at the same time, much humility. In 1933, Escrivá created the first home for Opus Dei in a small Madrid apartment. Called the DEI Academy, it became a residence, a center of apostolic activities, and a study hall for college students.
Hardly anyone was joining Opus Dei, and those who did, some of them didn't stick around. And he's talking about Opus Dei as something that God has given to the Church and that will last for centuries and forever. He's just a Spanish priest living in Madrid with a handful of people around him. And now that takes incredible faith.
As Escrivá nurtured his infant spiritual group, Spain was embroiled in turmoil. Political, economic, and cultural disputes divided Spaniards. Civil unrest erupted into civil war.
July 1936. The Spanish Civil War became a proving ground for Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Soviet Russia.
The nationalists, conservative and mostly Catholic, led by Generalissimo Francisco Franco, launched a rebellion against the Republican communist leftists that quickly cut Spain in half.
In the Republican side, priests were persecuted. That is a fact, and they were killed.
Brutal religious persecutions ensued. Churches were burned, clergy were hunted.
You're coming out of a period in which anybody who was a practicing Catholic in Spain probably had the experience of having to step over bodies to get to church. There were 4,000 priests who were killed, dozens of bishops, hundreds of sisters, in some cases lined up against walls in very public ways and shot to death by the Republican forces.
Forced underground, Escrivá lived as a religious refugee, in fear and on the run. He found safe haven in this attic. He posed as a mental patient in an asylum for 5 months. Through it all, Escrivá secretly celebrated masses and heard confessions.
He was carrying on his apostolic work as if nothing had happened, that he had the sense that he was doing something God wanted him to do, and that nothing could stand in his way.
In March 1939, the nationalists emerged victorious. Franco seized power as dictator and brutally ruled Spain for the next 36 years.
People had paid in their own blood for their fidelity to the church. And so there was an enormous upsurge of Catholic pride, and there was an enormous upsurge of Spanish nationalism tied in the symbol of Franco.
Escrivá and Opus Dei have been repeatedly accused of supporting Franco's fascist and repressive reign. It is logical that the Church felt closer at a certain time towards those who did not attack it. This is the reality. It is not a political option. It is an option of survival of faith.
I think the fairest thing you can say is that Escrivá was neither pro-Franco nor anti-Franco. It's a fair matter for debate that he should have been more anti-Franco, particularly as the injustices of the regime became clear. He was trying to follow his vision, and his vision was that as an organization, Opus Dei was simply going to stay out of the political fray.
On the day the war ended, Escrivá stood among the ruins of the DEI Academy. But 3 years of ugly civil war had not destroyed his vision for Opus Dei. Later in 1939, Escrivá published The Way, his book of 999 short passages known as maxims. If you don't get up at a set hour, you'll never fulfill your plan of life. Obedience, the sure way. Blind obedience to your superior, the way of sanctity.
He was writing things to encourage at specific moments, this soul, that soul, and he was coming up with ideas that would help those people.
The Way reveals the spiritual blueprint of Escrivá and Opus Dei, featuring topics like character, prayer, and tactics, with an emphasis on the group's privacy. Be slow to reveal the intimate details of your apostolate. Don't you see that the world in its selfishness will fail to understand?
It is a foundational document for them. There isn't anything else. He did write a lot of other books later on in life, but this is the one that I would have thought that they carried in their pocket. It's the Opus Dei's equivalent of Chairman Mao's Little Red Book.
In 1941, Opus Dei had 50 members. In Madrid's Catholic community, word spread of an isolated and clandestine group of Catholics.
There has been misunderstanding about what Opus Dei is about. This looks like they're being secret, but they're not really secret. They are just normal Christians, and people are unfamiliar with this way of doing holiness.
That way of holiness was attracting attention. Opus Dei was growing. The Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits, had an enormous presence in Spain's fervent Catholic Church. They were suspicious and opposed to Opus Dei's growth.
The root charge was that Opus Dei was a secret Catholic sect that was attempting to destroy the Jesuits, was attempting to divide the parishes, and somehow take control of the Spanish church.
So he sent his right-hand man, Álvaro del Portillo, to work towards a recognition.
But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, in part, it was also to be present at court, to learn the rhythms and the psychology of Vatican politics, to be able to make points. Opus Dei's leadership has always been very adroit at knowing how to move the levers of power.
With the blessing of Pope Pius XII, Opus Dei was granted permission to expand worldwide. The message of Opus Dei took root. From the 1950s through the 1970s, some 60,000 members could be found in 32 countries, including the United States. Colleges were founded by Opus Dei members. Apostolic activities and charitable projects were launched. Leading this campaign of remarkable growth was Escrivá, charismatic, magnetic, and passionate.
I don't think that you can explain the dramatic worldwide diffusion of Opus Dei in a very short arc of time without there having been something about this man that attracted people.
When you get a highly charismatic person who founds a new movement, there tends to be reverence for that person. In the case of Escrivá, it seems as if he encouraged it. He certainly didn't discourage it.
On June 26, 1975, following a morning meeting with women members, Escrivá returned to Villa Tevere, the Opus Dei global headquarters in Rome, collapsed in this room, and died of heart failure. He was 73. I have to thank God for these 50 years of work. Like a little donkey, I find myself before God, pulling the cart. This has been the job I've devoted myself to. Father Álvaro del Portillo, a former railway engineer turned priest, succeeded Escrivá as the prelate of Opus Dei.
It was just incredible that he could be fiery, he could be funny, he was warm, a man who was really a volcano of love of God.
He would mention the weight that he felt on his shoulders being the founder of Opus Dei.
He knew that he has to accomplish God's will.
I've always thought he was a saint, very, very holy.
However, Escrivá's detractors have painted a more critical portrait, a dark side.
He was very